Brandon?
Yes, sir.
It's time to nerd out on Lutron lighting.
I love it.
All right, so we're talking about Lutron lighting here.
Yes, sir.
And it's something, we've been a Lutron fan for decades, and we really enjoy it. But before we get too far into lighting controls and Lutron itself, let's just do a really quick history of what is Lutron?
Sure. It was developed back in the 60s, early 60s, late 50s. They invented the first dimmer. If you actually go to the Smithsonian and see Thomas Edison's first light bulb, they have a Lutron dimmer right next to it.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's kind of their stamp of history, if you will. But they've kind of been doing it ever since. In the span of their history, they obviously have a ton of patents that allows them to do what they do and do it well.
Well, so and then you're with a company called Bravas.
Correct.
I mean, I know what Bravas is, but what is Bravas? Who is Bravas?
So we actually merged together about 6 years ago. I've been with the company for 13 years prior to that. So basically we just came across a lot of the higher end companies across the nation. We kind of just went under one banner.
So you're low voltage integrator. So you do Lutron. We talked about Ketra on a previous visit. What are some of the other things that what are the other platforms that y'all install in the homes to make them smart?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lighting is definitely a big portion of what we're doing, especially in the last few years. But obviously we do audio, video, distributed video, things like that, motorized shades, custom theaters, security, surveillance. So kind of anything that makes the house fun.
I love that we do Wi-Fi. I call them enterprise.
100%.
Enterprise-grade Wi-Fi networks, which allow you to, just like you're going to a hotel or a convention center, you can walk around and always have the same thing.
Exactly.
But today we're going to talk about lighting, because audio, video, we're going to do that at some point, so that's really fun. But lighting control, the houses we're building are getting bigger and bigger.
Absolutely.
Not only are they getting, even a more modest size home may have multiple lighting circuits in them that we didn't have years ago. You have a kitchen, you could have pendants over an island, you could have can lights, you could have under counter lights, you could have decorative lighting inside the cabinets. So we're adding more and more switches. And Lutron, they call it wall acne. You get all these switches on the wall, you have this wall acne. So explain how a lighting control system will deal with that.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's definitely very common, especially nowadays, for floor plans to become a lot more open than they used to several years ago. They don't have the segmented rooms, so now the great room living areas are a lot larger than they used to be. And the other thing that we started seeing is that windows became a big thing. Floor to ceiling windows are very common now in these homes. So now you just don't have the internal wall space a lot of times to even put a bank of switches. So it's really even tough for an electrician or yourself or me to find a place where those can live and hide. But essentially what we end up doing is actually, like you said, having multiple lighting loads in each of those rooms. We can actually home run that all back to a main panel system and then put in maybe a single gang keypad that can control all of those lighting loads. So for instance, like you said, in a kitchen, sometimes you have 5 to 10 lighting circuits in that one area, and especially when you tack on like a great room or a breakfast room, all of that going on together, having a single gang keypad to turn that entire area on and off is pretty convenient. So
let's talk about that. So we have Lutron in our house. Obviously, we're a big fan, and we have the keypad. So where you'd have 5 or 6 switches, now you have one, a single gang box, and like on the keypad by our front door, we have a command that says welcome.
Yes, sir.
So when I press welcome, it turns on a dozen different lights. I mean, throughout the house. I mean, the whole thing lights up. So, obviously, the question gives the answer. But you can have these controls you're putting on the wall can do multiple things, not just consolidate switches to one gang.
Correct. That's 100%. A lot of times we do what's called a scene, essentially. So like your welcome scene is essentially what that is. But what it's doing is it's actually triggering multiple things at once. So a welcome could be, hey, I typically want my mudroom hallway lit up, and the first thing I do is go into my kitchen and then maybe go into the master bedroom. Essentially it would create that entire path when you come home. So typically if there's a routine that you do when you're always coming home, at the end of the day, it's going to turn on just those primary lights. And then same thing, reverse side of that. If you're leaving for the day, going to work or going on vacation, you just have a goodbye button, and it basically just shuts off everything in your house.
My favorite button is whole house off.
Yes.
Because then you don't have to worry. If you look up and say, oh crud, you just hit that one button and the whole house goes off.
Exactly. You're not constantly running around the house for 10 minutes every day or night, seeing if the kids turned off the lights upstairs, having to run up and down, left and right, so it's definitely convenient.
Let's talk about scenes, because with the Lutron, I mean, there's different systems, but Lutron system has scenes that that the owner can program themselves. So if there's certain things that you want to happen at night or during the day, like Christmas lights or landscape lights. I mean, how does that all work?
Yeah, so there is an app that obviously the client can have. A lot of times we integrate them within our control systems, so it's something like Savant or Crestron. But Lutron does have a standalone interface that allows them to change essentially what those keypads and buttons can do. So say after we do the initial programming, we come in and they initially thought they wanted all those lights at 100%. Maybe they don't like that. Maybe they want to ramp it down to 75. They can make those adjustments themselves.
One of the scenes that we've done at our house, like at 1 o'clock in the morning, we have a program that will go through and it turns off all the lights. And when you go to sleep, you get tired, you go to bed, you forget about stuff. So now I have a command that goes through and turns off all the lights that I forgot to turn off when I went to bed, because some of them are out of sight, out of mind. Now, Lutron has different levels. The one that you see in the stores is, I think, Caséta.
Caséta, correct.
Caséta. Then you have your RadioRA.
Yep.
And then you have your QS.
Correct.
So let's talk about what's the difference between the three.
Sure. So Caséta is definitely more kind of the big box stores. You typically just more of a DIY product. The designer keypads on those is pretty generic. It's just an up and down, kind of an on and off button. And essentially, they only are able to do a certain amount of loads in the house. So you can't really do a lot of times, and especially larger homes, accomplish that with the Caséta system. Right. It's more of an entry level kind of foot in the door style system where, hey, maybe I just want to do the outside lights, have them turn on, at sunrise and sunset. Maybe do a few other rooms, but they also don't have a keypad option, which is kind of their biggest drawback. So kind of doing the things that we just said, where you come home or you enter a big area at once and being able to turn on those lights, they don't really have with the Caséta option. Of course, you can open up your app and do that, but nobody in their right mind is going to do that when they come home and flip up their phone and try to turn on their lights with their phone. RAW 3 essentially is the newest version of the radio system that you talked about. That's definitely more of a retro style system that we typically use. So for homes that are not getting a full remodel or a new construction, of course, that's typically going to be something where we just change out existing dimmers or switches. So people that want that kind of the control and that keypad style functionality, that's basically the way to kind of get that from a system. And they don't have to rewire their home. They don't have to do anything. All they need to do is just change out switches. So it's very easy to do. HomeWorks QSX is kind of the next step. And that's where, obviously, on a larger scale, that's when you're doing most of the home in a lighting control system. The difference there is that in a new construction, and this is why that's, that line in the sand that's kind of been drawn, is you're wiring the home in a certain way to have everything go back to a main panel. And then what we're actually doing is running a low voltage wire to the actual keypads in those areas. So number one, a lot of times in larger homes, it actually cuts down on the cost of Romex. Romex is obviously a lot more expensive than a category wire. So it actually saves the homeowner money to do something like that versus what the electrician is going to do, right? And it's also a lot less work for the electrician, and it speeds up that entire process. But essentially, that is kind of putting the entire home under that panelized system, and that's typically going to be seen in more of a new construction area.
So one step back, and we'll go back to QS in a minute. So you said about sunrise and sunset. Okay, well, with daylight savings times, and the sun comes up at different times and different, goes down. How do you have to keep reprogramming, when sunrise is and sunset?
No, that's kind of the nice thing about Lutron is that it's not like the Home Alone crooks where they're watching the street and they can tell exactly when that house light is going to turn on and they have it timed. They actually use an astrological clock, so it actually varies by sunrise and sunset times on the Earth. So we can set it at sunrise or 10 minutes before or 30 minutes before, and essentially just automate that, and then it shifts every single day. And then obviously with, like you said, daylight savings time, it automatically adjusts too.
So now we're not talking about shades now, but Lutron has shades as well, and you could do, I guess you could do the same thing with shades. That when the sun goes up, you can have your shades open.
Absolutely.
When the sun goes down, the shades are closed.
That's right.
No touch, no.
That's right.
No harm, no foul.
That's right.
All right. So going back to the QS, you said that for new construction, you run your wires. Is there a limit to how many lights you can have on a QS system? Or?
There is. So that's actually another kind of big point on RadioRA, because there is a device limit. It's usually around 200. Now, most people think, oh, I don't have 200 things, but it's actually a device count. It's how many keypads, how many occupancy sensors, how many modules. Everything is a device. Yes, it can do 200, but typically when you start getting around that 150 mark, you understand that the processing power kind of starts to bog down a little bit. It's not as super responsive, but a QSX system can do limitless almost as far as devices is concerned. The other kind of big selling point is the keypad options for QSX. They have a lot more elegant style keypads. So they have Palladium or they have Elise style keypads, which most of our builders, clients, and interior designers immediately gravitate towards.
Right.
Because they're low profile, they look a lot more modern. The words, once they get engraved, are backlit. So it's really easy for a homeowner in the dark to go over and see what those buttons do. The RA 3 systems and the Caséta systems don't really have any lights on it to illuminate those words. So they kind of have to fumble around in the dark or kind of remember, where the top button is.
Muscle memory.
Exactly, yes. So that's usually another big selling point for a lot of my clients is that once they see the keypad options, they immediately go to a homework style.
Absolutely. So, I mean, do you have, well, let's talk about new construction because we be builders.
That's right.
So do you have to do your entire house?
No, not at all. So a lot of times what we do, obviously when budget, because most of us on this planet have some sort of budget, and we typically do essentially the main areas. So the main living spaces, probably the primary suites, maybe outdoors, things like that. So we usually do that on the panelized system. But a lot of times what we end up doing for guest bedrooms or kids' rooms, things like that, is putting in standard Decora style switches. Now it still puts everything onto the same system. So again, when you're going and you're hitting that goodbye button, it's still going to tell those switches upstairs in the kids' rooms to turn off. But they don't have to spend the extra money to put in a fancier style keypad in those rooms.
So now on some of these keypads, on the projects we've done, those keypads don't just do lights. I mean, we talked about you can do shades, but I've also seen other command buttons for motorized doors, for screens. I mean, there's what are the things you could put on that keypad above and beyond just lighting?
Absolutely, yeah. You bring up a great point. Essentially, what we end up doing is turning off the entire house, and by that we mean obviously the lights. We can close the shades, but also turn off all the TVs, the speakers, things like that. Maybe even arm the security system. So it's a very easy way for people to leave the home and just hit a button, and everything behind them just kind of automates. Now, the trick to that is there's something called conditionals that we set in with HomeWorks.
Right.
That's different than the other two style systems. And what that means is that I can actually do a half a second press and hold on a button that would turn off the entire house. So that way it doesn't get hit by accident. A lot of times if you just hit the wrong button, you don't want your entire house to turn off by accident.
I may have done that once.
We all have, yes. So essentially what we do is do a half a second push.
Right.
That way they know it's intentional, and then it would trigger that scene. So now it's not just turn off the lights. If you're ready to leave town for a vacation, you can press one little button. We're talking about vacation in a minute. Yes.
You press one little button and everything turns off, and the TV that your kids left on or your wife left on or maybe you left on in your office, you're done.
Absolutely.
You're just out there. So you can just leave your TVs on 24/7 and just turn them off when you leave.
That's right.
That'd be really...
Yeah, I use the car analogy. I know it's a weird term in an electronics area, but it's something that everybody kind of understands, because when people get in their car, they understand that they just need to push a button, and then about 1,000 other things are going at once. But that's the convenience of it, is that more is less in this type of scenario, because obviously in a car, you've got a ton of different mechanical and electrical things going on. But the simplicity of just hitting a button and triggering all of that, and then you just get in and drive off, is kind of the great concept of it.
That's a great analogy. And expanding it out on the car, when you walk away, they have proximity with your fobs. You walk away, everything turns off. That's right. If you're next to it, it'll stay going until you leave.
That's right.
That's a great analogy. I wish I thought of that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's okay. You can take it.
Maybe I did think of that. We'll just edit his part out. Yeah, remember that car analogy I was talking about? Yeah. All right, so let's talk about vacations.
Yes. Where are we going?
Last time, went to Austin. God, Lord help me. Oh, we love Austin. We want to build there. Yes.
We do.
Okay. Vacations. Well, you go on vacation, you're always, in the old days, you used to have the little rotary dials you put by your lamps, and the lamp would come on at midnight and go off. And
at least you hope they would, right?
Yeah, you leave your one closet light on somewhere. But that's with Lutron, it's a little different. So what do you do for when you go on vacation?
Yeah, so there's definitely a vacation mode that they can put in with Lutron where it actually triggers random lights at random times. So it kind of, again, I use that Home Alone reference where the crooks are driving by the house and then they see all of the floating silhouettes going in front of the windows. It's kind of that type of thing, but essentially, it's triggering just random lights to come on and off at random times, again, to make it look like somebody's home. So if there would be a intruder driving down the street, they would probably turn and go the other way.
So if Joe Pesci is out there staking you out, he's going to go next house.
100%.
And the mannequins, the little silhouettes are not included with Lutron. That's an add-on.
You build those, right?
Yeah. Our designers will work on that. So the dimming. So I noticed that when you folks are installing the Lutron and the dimmers, usually, when you hit a light switch, you turn it on, it comes on at full bright. Many times when I see the dimmers come on, they're not going all the way up. They're going to somewhere in the 70%. Is there a reason? What's the theory behind that?
There's another, essentially the conditionals that we talked about a minute ago, essentially is that same idea, because that's another thing that separates the QSX from the other two systems, is that you can set that conditional. And what that means is that between the hours, say, of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m., I don't want these lights to come on full blast because I'm trying to relax. You think of that kind of comfort by the fireplace scenario, and you obviously don't need the full brightness like you would during the daytime. Same thing for your bathroom lights. If you get up in the middle of the night, you go in the bathroom, it's not going to turn on that bright LED full blast and completely blind you and wake you up. So it comes on maybe just at 20% or 10%. So it's real subtle. You can kind of get where you need to go. You don't trip over something on the floor, but then obviously you're not having that full effect.
So some of the other tools in the tool belt for Lutron are occupancy or vacancy sensors.
Yes,
so they're little sensors. Talk to us about how those work for spaces.
Sure. I use those actually a lot in the secondary areas. It's definitely good if you don't have pets. They do have a limit as far as how big a pet needs to be, but typically I put them in mudrooms, pantries, laundry rooms is another great one, closets, things like that. So if you just want to kind of walk into the room, it would actually turn the light on for you, of course, and then after 5, 15, or 30 minutes, it just shuts it off. So it also kind of puts in that same style of keypad versus just having a normal one that looks very commercial. I'm sure you've seen those with the little sensors on the bottom.
Yes.
They see them in your doctor's and dentist office, right? It's not really in tune with something that's more of a glamorous or elegant home.
Yeah. So these, a mud room, like when you come into the house from you're out doing chores, come in at night, you walk in and the light comes on and you can see what's going on and move to your space.
That's right.
And if you want to hit one of your macro or scene commands on the deal, you can go. Now we're not going to get too much into Ketra. We had talked about that before, but if you want to do Ketra, which is specialty lighting, which is designed to mimic the I don't know, what is Ketra?
Ketra essentially is the fixtures themselves. So instead of getting the, no offense to Home Depot, but the smaller, cheaper cans that probably every electrician on the planet uses, essentially gives you a different style fixture that can actually do full tunable white or RGBW. So it can obviously do more of that yellowish, kind of comforting, light that you would typically do in the morning or in the evening, and then obviously do that more full white as it progresses during the day. So it kind of gives you the best of all worlds in that sense.
So now Ketra, you can buy fixtures, you can buy bulbs, and there's obviously programming that goes behind that. Can you use that with the Caséta or the Cube radio?
You cannot. So that's the other big selling point with a lot of my clients is if they are interested in doing a Ketra style setup, then we typically will have to do a QSX system. But the idea of that, again, is that it fully automates. So again, like you mentioned, the kitchen lights and having all of those fixtures in that one area, the toe kick lighting, the under cabinet lighting, accent lighting for the internal cabinets, all of that stuff. To be able to have all of those lights be the exact same color temperature is a pretty big statement, because a lot of times what I see is the attempt of trying to do that, but when you go into those spaces, you see different color temperatures out of every single fixture, and it just looks bad.
Oh, well, yeah, if you're OCD and you go in a room and you see 4,000, 3,000, 35, and 45, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard.
It's incredibly noticeable, yes.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, if you don't know, you don't know. But once you know, once an owner knows, or once your guests know, or something, you can never unsee it. It's always
Correct.
so. And then going back to the lighting, the scenes lighting controls. What are some things that you can do? What are scenes or events that you have seen folks do with their lighting systems that are maybe not commonly known or typical?
Sure, yeah. I mean, obviously the easy ones to know are the goodbye and the good morning scene, if you will. You know, the hello and goodbye kind of scenes. Those are they're pretty common. Yeah. But a lot of times we obviously do more specialty scenes like entertain. You know, so if they're having dinner parties or if they just want to sit down and watch a movie with the kids at night, they have an entertain button that would actually go ahead and tune all of the lighting necessary. It can also trigger certain individual, you know, light cans to be on, and then some, you know, turn off the sconces. So it can actually kind of really develop that room into kind of that movie scenario or that dinner party scenario. So again, it's just a very easy kind of, hey, this is how I usually have all my lights, or I have the TV on, or I have the music playing. This is what I do when I entertain guests or when I watch a movie with the kids. Then it's a great just go-to button to hit, and then it just automatically starts.
So if you're watching, say, Jurassic Park with your 2-year-old that you weren't supposed to let her see it, and you wanted to get it dark so that the dinosaurs really come to life, you just hit one button and it come on. And
that's right.
And then when mom comes home and she finds out that you did that.
Yes. And then it can leave the lights on overnight for her because she can't sleep. Yes.
Yes. I just say leave the lights on because somebody was telling me I shouldn't have done that. That's just a hypothetical. Never would you, Mike? Great, good deal. All right, so we're just touch on some other things. Lutron can work by itself, or it can work with whole house control systems.
Sure.
So what are the other control systems that you can incorporate Lutron into? Yeah,
so Bravas, that's kind of the other nice thing about us is that instead of most integrators that you come across, they may only be able to support one line. It would be either Savant or Crestron. We actually support all four. There's typically big four. So we have Savant, Crestron, Control 4, and Elan. Those are typically the ones that kind of put a general in charge of all the troops. So essentially when you have multiple things like cameras, security, lighting, shades, TVs, sound, it kind of puts an app in charge of all of that. So it's a lot easier for people not to have to bounce around between different apps because that gets a little annoying, especially if you've done some of the DIY things, you understand that. You go pick up some cameras from Best Buy and you pick up some Philips Hue light bulbs and you've got all these different apps. So it makes it very confusing when people try to use it because you're not going to use them on a daily basis like you should. So having everything compiled into one interface is usually kind of the game changer.
So going backwards, because I did it out of order, surprise, surprise. Other things that we've seen Lutron control. Christmas lights. You can turn your Christmas lights on and off. You can turn your landscape lights on and off. You can security lights or your parking, like your motor court lights on and off. So, but going back to the scenes, it's not just about welcome home and turn on the room lights. It's about controlling almost anything that has light, or other things as well, but light throughout the house. You can automate it, and those are things that you don't have to worry about anymore. Correct. Like your Christmas lights. Oh crud! I got to turn the timer off because it's January 1. Right. Or some of my neighbors, it's like February 5th before they turn the lights off. Correct. But you want to be able to turn them off. You don't have to think about it. It's program and done.
That's right.
Yeah. Then you can leave them up all year round and not have to worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And you just kind of trigger the scene on and off and kind of toggle it whenever, obviously, it's the season.
Or until the HOA tells you to take your lights down.
That too, yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, Brandon, you're with Bravas.
Yes, sir.
Tell folks how they can find you folks and how you can help them with Lutron.
Yeah, Bravas.com obviously contacts yourself or myself to get any sort of assistance and help design. We're always here.
Beautiful, great. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much for watching Uniqueness Built In. Have you seen something interesting on our show that you would like us to elaborate on? Or perhaps you've seen something out in the wild that you want us to talk about on our show? Feel free to email us at the email on the screen, info@garabedianproperties.com.